All right, welcome to the channel. My name is Adam Benjamin, the Roof Strategist, and today I'm joined by Carl Elmore. Carl, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So I'm gonna introduce you and fill in any blanks. So we're having a little bit of a real talk today, more of the stuff people don't talk about in this industry because we all like to just share the victories, but it's getting there that's the tough part. So Carl, 2 months in, right? Total sales in the pipeline. Where are you at?
Right now, I've got about 35 roofs in, claims in, some retail, some claims. I've done six roofs. And if I total up, like roughly using Xactimate numbers, I'm at about $800,000 in claims.
800,000 in your first 2 months in the industry with no experience. So this is, first of all, that's mind blowing. And the part that I want to talk about, which is why you and I emailed, was how you got to that point. Because an outsider, we all hear this stuff. We know that like Facebook, everyone shares the victories, but they don't talk about getting to that point. Can you share whatever you're comfortable with on the email? Because if correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, it was not an easy start.
Yeah, I mean, and just to give you a little background, which Adam, you obviously know this, but so a year ago in March, I was running a small business that was, not doing so good. And so we closed our doors, and actually it was such a gift because my kids were out of school; they couldn't go to school, so I went straight into like working all the time to daddy daycare for 4 months, and so I spent this like beautiful time with my kids, and I got out. And I kind of tested the waters with the industry in the summer, and I got hired as a manager actually for a company, company, and was there for like 3 months. So I kind of got my feet wet with the industry and technical knowledge and how the insurance process works and different kind of roofs and that kind of thing. But there were some things going on, and not to go into detail, but I just wasn't feeling very comfortable with that company, and so I left. And I asked like a good friend of mine that's been in the industry here for a long time, like, hey, I want to work with like top tier, somebody that like really is product focused and customer focused, and who would you recommend? And I actually asked three people, and they all said the same person, and so I felt like I was on to something. So, and that's how I landed with my current company, CNC. And so, but I started, and I had been out like door to door with other sales reps before, and they would tell you that, hey, like Carl's like 100% comfortable. I'd knock some doors, I'd led the conversation. There was even a time where we were knocking a house in this development, and I was with our top sales rep for my previous company, and he like couldn't handle the objection, and I just took it, like jumped in, again, no experience, and then we converted this guy, let us get up on his roof, and his claim got approved. And so one might think that, hey, like this guy's like super comfortable. That wasn't the case. And so I treaded water for a couple weeks, and I had this experience where, I just pull up to a neighborhood, and I drive around the neighborhood, and I sit out in my car, and I look at the house, and I know they had damage, and I just couldn't get out the trunk. It was like this mental block that I was in so much fear, so full of fear, such low self-esteem, probably coming off of some of the, like my recent history, being 4 years old, not being able to get a job and no college degree. And really, this is like the only thing I could come up with that I could do to make ends meet. And I just couldn't do it. And, when I bought the training, the Roof Strategist, I actually went through the training. And, I sent Adam an email. Actually, I was like, hey, I'm in my truck. I don't know what it is. I'm just terrified. I can't get over this. And, you see me like 3 videos. I'd watch these videos about fear and getting out. And, and I would still, like, it still took a couple weeks But again, I was still having this process where I'd scout out neighborhoods, I'd sit out in front of a house, then I'd turn and go home. My wife would ask me, like, how'd it go today? And I tell her it didn't go very good, And I was looking at my kids, feeling like a failure again. And it just was like that for a couple of weeks. And then actually another sales rep had this build, and I knew he wasn't knocking his builds. And so I asked my boss, hey, can I go knock this build? And that was the day I got out of the truck. And I went up to the first house. I remember the first house. And, it's the neighbor, obviously. So, how much easier does it get to be like, real life, helping your neighbor, like today, And, and it just kind of got the conversation going. And, I spent all day. I spent the whole day out there knocking the neighborhood, knocking the streets, doing kind of what we've been trained or what's in the training. And, and I put in 2 claims, and I sold a metal roof retail. I didn't sell it that day, but like made the lead. We measured it, estimated it, but it's a pretty big roof. It's like a 60 square metal roof.
Huge.
Standing seam. So, so it's kind of that first day that, like, I just started to click, and and I just remember coming home very vividly, and it's like the first time that my wife asked me how'd it go, and I said, really well, and I think I could do this. And then I just went on a rampage, honestly, just knocking, leaving letters, calling, following up, calling agents, calling real estate people. I had this little Post-it note in front of my computer, and I would drop my kids at daycare, and I'd say, this is what we're doing. We're going to treat this like a job, and it's bell to bell, from drop off to pick up. We're going as hard as we can go. Sometimes I pick my son up, drop him off at the house, and I go back out and knock. And, and here I am. I'm just a couple months later, and, I've got a lot of houses in. Like I said, I've got a lot of claims in. I've already built 6 houses. I've got a bunch, that I've done. And I really hadn't sat down and totaled it up until I knew this call was coming up. So, because I really don't even think about it, something that another mentor of mine told me is that you just have to approach it from you're there to be a service, like you're there to educate, to help, and, that's like the really fun part for me is it's not selling the crazy, 70 square house. I've got a couple of monsters, like a 100 square tile job and a 75 square slate job. It just like referral, boom, boom. I just got into this, like, but then I've got like, hey man, like I just finished a little beach house for a guy in Carolina Beach. It's a 15 square cash job. Like I made like $100, and, down the street, like this, Gladys L, let's say her last name, but she called me up like on Monday and was like, when I met Gladys, I knocked on her door, she's elderly, she's on a fixed income, and she's like, I desperately need a roof. I was almost to the point of taking out a reverse mortgage on my house to pay for my roof. And I said, Gladys, let me get up and check it out. I came down. I said, Gladys, you got damage. Here's the pictures. I know you got an insurance company that's tough, but let me just fight the fight and see what happens. And, like I said, Gladys called me on Monday. And actually, the even better part is she called, instead of calling my cell, she called me office. And so she talked to, my boss's wife, and she was so thrilled. And she called me and she's like, I just can't believe it. I just got this call. They're going to pay for my roof, and I can't believe this just happened. Like, I'm 80 years old. I'd never put in an insurance claim. And, these guys, like I said, they just called me and said, you know what, you got damage, you got hurricane damage, which she did. that's like the really fun part, because I've had those experiences. Like, it doesn't matter to me. Like, I don't care if it's like I'm putting on a roof on Saturday for a guy that's in a double wide. You know what I mean? And I'm having just as much fun with him as I am with the guys that I'm making like the bigger claims. Because the reality is, it's like nobody understands insurance. And so he's almost just as like grateful. I can like feel it that he like is like genuinely thankful for me. So how do you go from like that to where I am now? Like, I don't really know. I did what was in the training. I put in the effort, I put in the work, and but I just don't even. I can't explain it. It just kind of keeps happening every day. I talk to somebody, or somebody leaves a Google review and says, how much they appreciated, the effort that I put into their job. Like the crew tells me. My boss is really big on like, you're there to support the crew. You know what I mean? They don't work for you; you work with them. And so, like if they need something, it's like going to get it. I'll be back in an hour. Like, I'm not gonna, you know what I mean? Like, I got your back. You guys are gonna finish the job today. You're not gonna sit around and wait on a bundle of ridge. So now I'm just kind of going off. So I'll shut up and let you.
Oh man, you hit it all, Carl. And I want to say thank you for being so real and sharing this stuff, because it's the thing that people don't talk about. It's the thing that seasoned people don't remember anymore. Because I'm curious if your thoughts. Do you think now that you have traction that roofing sales is actually quite simple?
It's the simplest thing I've ever done.
Yeah. But it's horrifying for so many people getting started. You're being put into an environment and a situation you've never dealt with before. And there's confidence, there's self-esteem, as you mentioned, there's fear of the unknown. There's the mindset of, door-to-door salespeople are painted into this certain light. Same with roofing companies, and that traction's huge. And it's just another testament. I really believe roofing sales changes lives. It is like a rock bottom place for many. It's rock bottom for me. Sounds like it was for you too. We didn't grow up being like, I'm going to come in roofing sales. I'm at a point that I have no other choice, and just so happens to be a lot of money we can earn. And it's not easy, but it's simple, and you did it. And it's just absolutely awesome. And I'd love to hear, like, what ultimately do you feel like gave you the courage, the heart, or the drive to get out there and get that initial traction from after having those days of not getting out of the truck? What shifted? Was it the familiarity of being able to knock the build, so it was easier to like have a reason to show up at the house, as opposed to it being like a cold visit? Or was it something totally different?
Well, it's funny. Like, this can sound like super lame. Definitely the builds, like, that was a good jumping off, and that certainly gave me that little trigger confidence. But the funny thing is, like, the first door I knocked on, like, I knew they weren't going to be home, but I was like, I just got to get to this door and like knock on the door and ring the doorbell and stand there for at least a minute, Yeah. And then it was like, all right, well, that didn't kill me, And then I went to the neighbor, and I just down the whole street. It was like, I didn't even, of course now, like when I'm knocking, I look for houses that have damage, but I almost just started knocking every door. Like, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to have a conversation with somebody. And, hey, who doesn't want their roof checked? Maybe it's a year old. We're living in an area where hurricanes blow through every year. Like, hey, man, let me just get up there and check it real quick and just make sure you're good. It's not going to cost you anything. I'm right here. So I think I just approached it in that way, where just like I said, it wasn't so much of like, I don't know, but it's funny. It just, those are some little things that I think just help me out the gate. Just get over that, because I was terrified, and terrified of what? I've probably knocked, I can't even count how many doors I've knocked, and I've only had like one person like slam the door. You know what I mean? Like, most people just awkwardly like stare at you and you ask them questions, try to get them going. Like, you talk about their like you talk about your training, like the Raptor in the parking lot. You know what I mean? Like, you try to find something to strike up the conversation, and you kind of tell like, all right, they're just kind of waiting, and then the first opportunity they get, they're going to whisk me away, which is fine. But I think that's the fun part is that you share the story in your training. And now I've getting off topic, but you talked about the guy that was throwing us along, and you just like weren't gonna give up on him, And I've got a couple of those people now where, yeah, man, I staked their neighbor's yard. We did their roof. You know what I mean? And I just went back and, hey, ask your neighbor their experience, because I think they're going to tell you that like my customer service is top notch. I was here all day. The roof we put on, every T's crossed, every I's dotted. That thing is, they're not going to worry about the roof for a long time. Let me give you the same opportunity. And
yeah.
Eventually they have.
That's great. I'm glad to see that's working for you. Just for the benefit of anybody watching or listening, there's a few key things that you had said that made a difference, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of these, but one, which I found interesting. And I share, by the way, I share this openly with owners. I don't talk about it much with sales reps, but one of the reasons the sales strategy that you went through is effective is because cold door knocking is the hardest part for people. And when we have that reason to be there, it's easier. The reason you knocked a build. It is so much easier to show up with a clear purpose where you don't feel like you're there to sell something. You're there to let them know what's going on, provide assistance if there's any complaints or noise or debris, and then start a conversation to find out what's going on with their roof. So you're not even there selling anything. And that leads to point 2, which was just finding out if you get help and starting a conversation. And that shift of when we show up at the door, it's like, how do you start a conversation with a stranger that you interrupted? But when you focus on that, as opposed to word vomiting a giant pitch to sell them something, it's easier. So you have a reason. And then you mentioned it. How can I help? Start a conversation. And then all of a sudden, this door knocking thing that's crippling to us when we first start is a lot less scary because we're there for a reason. It's not go knock on that stranger's door and sell them a roof. It's like for so many people, then you start doing it and then you're like, all right, cool, let's go do it. But it takes us getting up and over that hump to get to that point of the confidence. And it cracks me up. Now you said you're on a rampage, you're going bell to bell, Carl, 850 in sales. And I know for anyone listening at those numbers, there's a big cash job for a metal roof. You had 2, what was it? I have your email pulled up. You had 2 big, where was it? Yeah. Square concrete tile.
Yeah, I got a square, like 100 square concrete tile
right
now that they're going to fight, but they've got a ton of damage.
It's
might take it to appraisal, actually. Got an engineer going back out. But anyways, long story short, it's probably, just in big jobs. That job, between that job, my sleep job, it's a big portion.
No,
it's good. It's a good job, but most of my jobs are, 20 squares, 25 squares, 30, 40. It's just kind of all over the map. Like, I don't cherry pick. I just go for it,
Yeah. It's just awesome.
I've got a couple neighborhoods that are opened up, and, it's kind of hilarious. Like, you drive through the neighborhoods, like CNC. It's like, you're the CNC guys, It's like, well, it's a CNC guy,
Yep.
And what's even funnier is they're like on the way home from a couple buddy of mine that are in the industry, work for a different company. So they're like, they're like, what? I can't believe, I got to drive home and drive through the street, look at your signs every day. I'm like, well, sorry.
Yeah.
There first, you know what I mean? So
yeah, and that's the whole idea. Working that system, make it easy, open up the neighborhood, and you dominate. Carl, thank you for sharing all this stuff because it's so many people need to hear it. We've all had, even seasoned guys. It's not just new people. We all have a slump, and it's tough. And I'm curious if you were just to wrap up our time, because I know we're running out here. But what would you say if you were mentoring yourself a few months ago, you know that there's other people listening who are in those shoes, what advice would you give yourself that would also obviously benefit anyone listening?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot about, one thing that's really resonated with me is you talk about in your training about the personal development involved in doing this job. And, I mean, it was at this critical crossroads in my life where, I'm questioning all my decisions. And like I said, I'm 40 with a couple kids. And, just the reality is like, I was not having a good time. I was not on a winning streak. I didn't feel good about myself. And, I was in a really difficult spot. And I don't share that. I know there's some guys that follow your channel and, I haven't shared that in full, completely with them. But, that's been the biggest gift is that if you can find a way to, do the footwork, if you can find a way to just work the program, that's why I paid the money on the training. Like, I paid the money on the training to figure out what is the training and then to give it my best shot of doing what it is that someone else did to be successful. And, I've had success. Like, I've sold a lot of roofs, I've had great experiences with customers, but, that doesn't touch the difference in how I feel from when I started this job to afterwards, because I got my life back. I got my confidence back. Like, hey, I went to a couple weeks ago, spring break, and we stayed. It was hilarious. We stayed in this farm. We did like a farm stay, and I just like watch my kids run around this farm. And I sit on the porch with my wife. We're just sitting there watching our kids like run around, and it's like the first time in a while where I felt like you'll be okay. Like, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And I would have, like 2 months ago, I didn't think it was going to be okay. I thought it was not going to be okay. And so, for that, like, I'm forever grateful for this channel, the training, and the opportunity to get to suit up and show up and do this job. And that's a big reason why I'm as passionate as I am about it, because it's, given me a lot of gifts, monetary and emotionally, in a short period of time. So.
Carl, thank you. It's a two-way street. I mean, I am forever grateful for you sharing this stuff. Seriously. I mean, this is the stuff that other people need to hear. It's my why. This is my why, is hearing these stories. This is what drives me forward. And I appreciate you being part of it. I'm so glad to see your life changing in such a great place, and the motivation and excitement. And it's, as I say, sales, personal development disguised. The money comes, but it's not the chase. The chase is the fun part of the growth. And it sounds like you're there. And I can't thank you enough, Carl, for being here and sharing the depths of what I want more people to know, that they're not alone out there, because it can be an isolating field to be in when, no one gets it. No one gets our victory. Hey, I sold 100 square tile job. And they're like, what's a square? What's a tile? What does that mean? Like no one gets it. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Seriously, I'm grateful. And for anyone watching, put your heart into it, grow. This industry it's a game of being the best version of you when you play it right. So that's all I got to say for this. Any closing words before we wrap it up, Carl?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So good luck out there. You can do it.
I'm going to end on that one. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next time.